All right, let's talk some balls, also known as the Washington Commanders, also known as the Washington football team, also known as the team that should not be named, the Washington football team, Commanders, whatever you want to call them. So yesterday, geez, that intro was not great. That took forever. Sorry about that. Plowing ahead here. Yesterday, I asked you what do you think of the Washington Commanders? What do you think of the Balls? What are your thoughts on them heading into the next season? So now I'm going to answer that question. For tomorrow, it's going to kind of just be a similar thing. What are your thoughts on the Dallas Cowboys? Do you agree with me that they'll win 6.71 games? Probably not. You're probably going to disagree with that. So let's talk about, them in the next video. But now let's get into the Commanders and talk about them. Commanders are kind of underrated, to be honest. Wentz isn't a bad quarterback at all and is definitely average to above average and a big upgrade over Heineke. The O-line is still fine. The run game is good. And they did a great job giving weapons to throw the ball to. The defense has the talent to be good as well, and they could win double-digit games if everything goes right. I think they will win 7+ games. Yeah, so again, in my podcast, I had them winning over nearly 11 games. If you round, it would be 11. So I'm high on the Commanders, which I agree. I think that they're just a complete team. I think that their ceiling is a bit tough. I don't know if they can, I don't really see a scenario where they're in like a conference championship necessarily, but do they have a chance to be successful? I think so. I agree with you. Also, I don't know what's going on with my hair right here. I wetted it. It's still going. It's weird. We're dealing with what we have. Listen, if you've been watching this channel, sometimes I have good hair days, sometimes not so much. We deal with what we have. The Commanders are a team that will be just good enough to barely miss the playoffs and get a crappy draft pick. Wentz is an upgrade, but unless the defense returns to 2020 form, this team is destined for mediocrity. And that's without even getting into the Dan Snyder of it all. Yeah, I think the further away we can get from Dan Snyder, probably the better. There's a very real chance that's true as well. And that's why I didn't love the Carson Wentz signing, even though I do think it helps the team, is it's like, again, what is your ceiling? I don't know. So if you're a low ceiling team who also, probably isn't going to get a great draft pick, what are we really doing here? Although, again, their ceiling is still fine, I think. Their ceiling is still playoffs, but it's going to be tough to, I think, really win a Super Bowl where they're at right now. They're kind of in that weird middle phase. I agree with that. The Washington football team is one of the teams I'm looking forward to watching the least. I don't think Carson Wentz is a good leader. They don't seem to have much of an identity to me. With that being said, Ron Rivera is probably the best coach in the division. Yeah, I mean, it's probably him or Sirianni, because I don't know how good anyone feels about Mike McCarthy, and then Jerry's still out on Brian Dable. But yeah, I like Ron Rivera. I don't think he's elite, but I think he's good. Although, again, I don't love the cover 3 zone stuff too much, but he mixed it up a little last year. I'll hope he continues to mix it up this following year. And yeah, I mean, I don't care about like leadership qualities that much. I think that stuff's overblown. Not to say it doesn't matter, but like, I think for a quarterback, I want a quarterback who can throw the ball well, which Wentz does an okay job at. That's kind of my opinion on that, but I get that people have different opinions on that. I think the quote-unquote Washington Commanders are an abomination to the NFL. They have done nothing of value as an organization but waste semi-top tier talent while simultaneously having the trashiest uniforms. Why does this team still exist if I would make less money as a head coach than sweeping the non-bottled floors because no one goes to the games under a 100-year-old stadium? Wow, harsh words for the Washington Commanders. Listen, there's stuff to be upset about, and I don't disagree. I think that the stadium could probably use an upgrade. You're right about that, and I'm certainly not going to defend anyone in that high up in that front office. And obviously, it all starts with Dan Snyder. Not great stuff. I like the uniforms. I think the uniforms are fine. That's just me. I like the ones they had last year, and the new ones I think are fine. But I don't know. Maybe people don't like those either. I am an Eagles fan, but I will admit the Commanders have solid pieces on both offense and defense. I do feel that there are some crucial parts missing, mainly at quarterback. I personally don't think Wentz will be amazing for them, but I do feel like they'll be a decent team and at least get 7 wins. Yeah, it does seem like that's kind of the general consensus, is that, there's at least a high floor with this team. It seems unlikely that this team is going to completely bottom out. Like, last year, it seemed like that was weird. Of course, Wentz should help them. I still agree. He's not amazing. He probably won't be amazing for them, but could at least be solid. I'm a huge Commanders fan. I'm actually thinking this could be a very solid year. I think a ton of people are overlooking our skill positions on offense. Terry McLaurin should have made your 25 weapons list, and that O-line will be solid too. All that has to happen is the defense plays average, Wentz plays average, and this team could win the division and keep that tradition of going to a different team winning the NFC East every year. Yeah, listen, I don't disagree other than okay, every team is going to think that their number one wide receiver should have made my top 25 weapons list, all right? I only had 7 wide receivers there. He was not one of them, but he's great. And you're right. Curtis Samuel as well. Curtis Samuel doesn't get much love. He could be really good. So they have a lot of weapons to throw to, which is very key. So you get the weapons under control. You have a solid quarterback who has played well when he's had guys to throw to. I agree. I think this team very much has a chance to win the division. How will Carson respond after taking a beating from the Jags and missing the playoffs last season and having to play them right off the bat week 1? Yeah, that's an interesting little scenario there. But I do think it's fascinating you see it sometimes where when a team has a deflating loss, that sometimes can motivate them for next season. Now, this isn't a team that's doing it. This is an individual that's doing it. But Wentz played poorly in that Week 18 game against the Jaguars, as you said, and that probably cost him his job. I think that if he plays decent in that game, and it wasn't all Wentz's fault. He's the scapegoat for that, but he also didn't play well. So, if he played better in that game, the Colts probably keep him because they would have made the playoffs then. So, if they won. So I do think that he has a lot to play for, and maybe he's just going to, do his best to win that week 1 and go all out to try to look good week 1. I can see that. This season will heavily depend on how Carson and Terry connect. That is, if he plays due to contract. Their defense will be top tier again with Chase again, but will also need linebackers to step up big time this year. They will not go 1, but can easily go up to 2 if that all goes well. I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that. I'm not sure if that means where they place in their division, maybe go 1. But yeah, I think they could win the division if that's what you're referring to. I think it's possible, and I agree. I think that there's again that Carson Wentz and Terry McLaurin stuff. That's really how you win football games, is through the passing game. So a lot of it will come down to that. Terry, Curtis, Dimey, and Jahan are all very good deep threat receivers. Yeah, I'm interested in seeing what will we see from Dimey Brown, who was a relatively hyped up prospect who has yet to live up to that hype. Curtis Samuel and Terry McLaurin are established, very good players. And Jahan Dotson, I wasn't as big of a fan of his as others were. So that's kind of one of the things. Kyle loved him. Kyle loved that selection. So, maybe he's right. I was just not as big of a fan of it personally. He wasn't my favorite receiver, but I still liked him, and I still think he'll do nice things. And again, with Terry McLaurin and Curtis Samuel there, he can just step in and try to be a number 3, which will just make his job easier. Even if there's only some things that he's good at, he should be good at those some things. As a Cowboys fan, it's easy to joke about the Commanders and their long-running scandals. However, I sympathize with the fans who have to deal with their team's shenanigans given how shaky the team has been recently. How would you balance supporting your favorite team despite having obvious moral controversies? Yeah, that's always tough. Listen, you're going to like your team, probably. Some people will stop liking a team after certain controversies, and I don't blame them. I really don't blame someone who was a Washington fan and says, screw this, I'm going somewhere else. I think that's reasonable. I'm not someone who, judges other fans or say this is how a fan should be. If you want to, do whatever makes you happy. Sports are about fun at the end of the day. But I also don't judge anyone who says, I love this team. I grew up watching this team. I want to still see them do well, so I'm going to continue to watch them. That's, the other aspect of all of this. And you see it similarly with the Cleveland Browns, right? With, them getting Deshaun Watson, kind of, another, that's probably maybe even a bigger example of this kind of thing. So I agree. It very much sucks for the fans. The fans are the ones who get screwed here, and sports are about the fans. So it sucks that, they have to deal with all this, nonsense. We like to make jokes and talk about all this stuff, but you're absolutely right. For me personally, I think about, myself, there's definitely been some, play, my team got Antonio Brown, right, who was not necessarily, we all know Antonio Brown, and I still rooted for, him to score touchdowns. So, I think typically what you say is like, listen, I like watching football. I like this football team. I watch them play football. And that's what I like about them. I'm sure that's what people feel about the Washington football team. And, the coaches and players, for the most part, seemingly are like all, at least just as good as any other team. So you at least have that going for you. It's not like the players are necessarily the worst ones. It's the Dan Snyder of it all. Finally, I think the Commanders are a team that is a fringe playoff team. I think they are in the same tier as the Cowboys and Cardinals in the NFC, as teams that will be pushing for one of the last playoff spots. I feel that with a healthy defense and an offense upgraded with quarterback play, they will finish second in the division behind the Eagles. Hey, that's where I have them. I am also someone who is a fan of the receiving core. I think Terry McLaurin is a top 7 wide receiver in football talent-wise, and I was someone who had Dyami Brown and Jahan Dotson, both top 5 in their draft classes the last couple of years. Yeah, you're not alone in that, people being high on Dyami Brown and Jahan Dotson. A lot of people like them. Again, Terry McLaurin top 7, it's like you say that and it feels right, but then you have to actually list 7 guys, and it's like, is he better than DK Metcalf? Like, I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. Is he better than Justin Jefferson? Probably not. So when you make the list, it becomes a little bit more difficult. But that being said, he's very good. He's clearly a number 1 wide receiver who will do his role as a number 1 wide receiver. So at the end of the day, who cares where you rank on a list? It's all about the value you bring to your football team, and he brings a ton of value. The receiving core should be good. You're right. The upgraded quarterback play. And yeah, I have him right there as well. I have him as the 3rd wildcard team. So I'm with you. But yeah, that's what I think about all of this. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.